Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Rach and Fi Unplugged. Hi, Fi.
Hi, Rach. How you going?
I'm great. I'm great. Okay, so this week we have a viewer who has given us another question, and we love this because we love something to respond to. And this question was, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how do we tap deeper into our intuition and how do we know the difference between intuition and ego? So it is just a brilliant question. And all we can offer, I suppose, is our own experiences on how we've managed to do that. What do you think, Fee?
Yeah, absolutely. I love this question. I'm like, there's so many things that we could discuss around this,
I know,
Rach,
I know.
like of our own personal experience, of uncovering our intuition.
Yeah.
And yeah, so keen to get started.
Okay, so I think for me, I got so much validation from how my intuition showed up by having myself around like-minded people. Okay, I
Mm.
learned so much around people who could share and broaden my own awareness, if that makes sense. Like, I'll give you an example. So a couple of years ago, a group of local people um, in my town decided we'd actually do a spiritual expo, and this is because we had outsiders coming into the town to run expos, and they weren't actually local. But locally, we had so many gifted and you know, uh, I'm sort of lost for words here, but we had so many gifted people able to bring so many different modalities to the locals, but no one knew about them, okay, because they were all hiding under the veil. Now, so we decided to put this expo together. So I was surrounded by, these psychics and what have you. So I was able to really hone how things showed up for me, because we'd be sitting having our meetings and they go, "Ooh, there's spirit in the room." And I'm like, "Oh, is that what that chill up my back meant?" So my body was reacting to it, but I didn't know what it was reacting to because I didn't know. You don't know what you don't know.
Oh, I think that's such an important point too, Rach, is it shows up differently for everybody.
Mm.
So you got all your different clairs. You might have to help me here because I
Mm-hmm.
haven't refreshed. So you got your clear audience, so it's
Yes.
clear hearing,
Yep.
clear cognizance, clear
Mm-hmm.
fear knowing,
Clear knowing. Yep.
yep, clear sentience, which is clear
Feeling.
feeling,
Yep.
clairvoyance, which is clear seeing, and clear olfactory, I think it is, which is clear smelling.
Okay.
I think that's right. So
Yes.
it's about,
And yeah, keep going.
yeah, no, I was just going to say, it's like figuring out what works, how it shows up for you,
Yes. So
and
you have
and
you
play
have
with
two or
it.
three that are more
Prominent.
prominent within you. So
Mm.
I can give you stories about how things have shown up for me. I actually did a workshop, and I was sitting next to this lady. We're all there. It's a spiritual workshop. We're just honing our own skills, and I think it was an oracle reading workshop. Anyway, so this lady I was sitting next to, someone said something about a card. They bought a deck of cards because their grandmother used to read playing cards, and I started singing a random song. Not like Kenny Rogers, the Gambler. Most people know that sort of the thing. But this was a different song, and she looked at me and she's like, "That was my dad's favorite song." And I'm like, "Okay," but that song jumped in my head just like that, and I'm like,
Mm.
and I started singing it out loud, even like, "Oh my, what? How random is that?" And I
Oh,
can't really sing, but it was like, what? But for enough for the message from her father to get to her to say he was there, you
mm.
know. So I know this is not really uh, examples of how you can trust it. Well, it is, because that message was actually not for me but for her, but I just trusted that I just sing this song, like seriously.
Do you know, I think that's the thing, Rach. Like the more you trust it, the stronger the muscle is, and the stronger it comes through. Yeah. And for me, also too, what's important for what you just said then is for me, the intuitive hits there's no thought processes behind it.
Yeah.
It just comes out of nowhere. You might be looking at the trees and all of a sudden you think of a red car. And you're like, well, there's no reason why that thought would just drop in. So when you trust it, I think the more you do it, the more it comes through for you. So
that's right. And while you're sort of starting to go, oh, I had this feeling, and you know, even if you don't, because quite often anything intuitive doesn't make a logic sense. So even if you go, okay, I'm going to just watch and see what plays out here. Okay, what you can do is actually use an evidence journal. Write down something where you have a feeling, or even when something you know is going to happen and it does. Write that down as your evidence journal. This is the evidence that you are intuitive and you can trust those hits. Okay. Now, because like you just said before, it's like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. And then the more you lean into it, you don't have to doubt whether or not it's right or wrong. You just trust it. Okay.
Yeah. It's this whole system that you're able to tap into and use.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know, sometimes it defies logic, but you know, in hindsight, you go, well, you know, that makes perfect sense now. Whereas at the time it might not necessarily make sense.
Exactly. So did you want to sort of tell a little bit about your journey back to trusting your intuition and what you did to sort of get there? So Tuesday nights, that type of thing.
So I guess a lot of it was around my discovering human design and discovering how my design is, and that I have a lot of knowing circuitry, because I've always had this really, so I guess this is claircognizance, where it's like you just know what you know. And prior to that, it was like, no, I need to put the logic behind it, the theory behind it, like how I can't just know this stuff. Whereas now it's like, you just know what you know. It's, you know, and just trusting that. And also too, I've done the psychic development classes as well. And that was crazy because there was all these things that I just thought was my imagination. So I found out that I was quite clairvoyant, that I actually saw things in my mind's eye. And just learning to really lean in and trust it. I've also done the diary, where when things just like pop in, Rach, just like taking a note. So you got physical evidence of but I think the most important thing, Rach, is just to have fun with it. Like not to take it too seriously, but just like work with it and have fun, and because it's just another support system that we can tap into. So definitely enjoy it.
Oh, 1,000,000,000%. Now, the other part was that question was, how do we know the difference between intuition and ego? Okay. And I think it's actually quite a simple question, or part of the question to answer, because the ego is always going to try and keep you safe or small. Okay. So if you have got a feeling about something that is maybe a little bit out of the box, or you know, it doesn't make sense logically, then that's your intuition. Okay. So when you can trust something that doesn't make sense, that's your intuition. So, but when you're trying to make sense of something, keep you small, keep you quiet, that will be your ego. Okay. That's my view on it. Do you have what's your
I think as well, Rach, like that intuition feels expansive, whereas the ego feels very contractive, like very limiting. So I feel like really getting like tapping into like the energy of it. And I think also too, the ego, there's going to be like a lot of thinking, and that's usually the ego. Whereas intuition's, it's quite it's quick, it's kind of out of the blue, it's and that's the difference. But I think energetically they feel quite different. Usually the intuition speaks to you and it's a really loving, expansive kind of energy that you're working with, rather than the ego, which is, I think it's contractive and
Yeah, and that's really important to sort of try and identify the difference between how
Mm,
each one feels, because especially if you're clairsentient, where you're actually going to feel something, as opposed to just know it or whatever that it may be. So
mm,
understanding how something may feel within your body too is really important. Um,
mm. And I guess the thing is, the only way you're going to, it's trial and error, Rach. The more
yeah,
you play with it, the more you trust it,
yeah.
the more you're going to be able to differentiate between the ego and the intuition. So
Mhm.
it's really, it's just working with that. And also too, I just thought, like clear audio, that could be exactly what you just did, like where a song pops in and
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Or you will hear a song on the radio that will talk to you about something. So it may not necessarily be that you hear voices,
mm, yeah,
because, it doesn't always have to look a particular way. It can be that, you're going to get a message through a song, or a song is delivered to you and you go, that's so random. I don't even
mm,
recall hearing that, or, just stuff like that. So it,
mm,
it can be, and like I said, I started singing this song, and that message was not for me. That was for the lady sitting next to me, from her
mm.
dad. And it's like, okay, no worries.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
clairvoyance could be like I always thought it was you saw it in the physical. It's not. It's like the flashes of pictures that you get in your mind's eye.
Mm.
You know, learning to
Well,
trust those.
I had someone else who was clairvoyant, and she was saying how to her it looked almost like a movie reel.
Mm,
That's how she saw it. Now, all we can do is gather information and evidence from other people on how things can show up, because when we're trying to understand it, it probably won't look the same as anyone else's, but you just have to
mm.
know that that's how things show up for you.
Yeah. So, going back to that spirit one, Rach, you might feel the chills, whereas I might, in my mind's eye, see someone shuffling along in little shoes, or that's actually happened for me. It's like, oh, I can see this little lady and she's got these little shoes, and that was quite relevant for that person.
Yeah,
So it's just it shows up differently for everybody. And it's
100% it does. And
yeah.
obviously, my clear sentiment is that, I can give you another example of, we had a spiritual platform. So we had a night where, I was with my friends who were clairvoyant and psychic, and they were able to describe the physical stuff about what was happening and what have you. Whereas I was experiencing the or I say, they say the physical, as in they were able to paint a picture of what someone looked
Mm,
like, and the rest of it. Whereas I was feeling the feels within the body. So, there was one lady who had passed, and she'd passed from an anaphylaxis reaction, and I felt like I was choking, and I was like coughing and
mm,
fluttering, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And I'm like, was there a lung problem, or like, because I felt like I couldn't breathe.
mm,
And that was when these women confirmed that no, she'd actually had an anaphylaxis reaction, and that's how she passed. So I was feeling that. And then another person, my legs were aching, and I'm like, oh my God, the pain I was feeling down my legs. So I was standing up, we were presenting, and I'm like, oh my goodness, my legs are so sore. But the lady that came through had actually just broken her legs prior to passing. So I was feeling that pain. And,
mm,
just things like that, where we automatically feel like they're ours too,
mm,
so depending on what we're tuning into, obviously, we're not
mm,
always tuning into spirit, we're just trying to tune into a knowing,
mm.
which is obviously what our intuition is, but it can show up so differently.
Absolutely. And it can show up differently each time for everybody. Like I know
Mhm.
with me, with my human design, I've got an undefined spleen. So it pops up differently for me. Whereas you, it is very much more the
Mm.
clairsentience. It's a very like you can, you know what it is. So
And but that
yeah.
in itself has taken me a long time to be able to know whether it was my stuff I was feeling, or whether it was someone else's stuff. And you really have to stop and take note, because you know, if I'm around someone who is very stoic and they're telling me quite a sad story, but there's no emotion there, and I'm standing there blubbering, and I used to feel so embarrassed. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this. But it was actually their emotions that they weren't processing that I was feeling. So I know this is probably just going off a little bit of the intuition, but you know, you have to be able to understand how things show up for you and then gauge whether it's yours or it's something different as well.
Absolutely. And do that body scan before you go, is this mine or is it someone else's? And if it's someone else's, you just send it back. And I think, the big key with the intuition is it's there as a support. It's there so you're not giving your power away to other people. So you're able to tap into your own divine inner knowing and that guidance system that we all have access to. So yeah, the more we trust it, the more we work with it, the stronger it becomes.
Exactly. And that's like, you know, a lot of people outsource their intuition or their spiritual knowing, which
yes.
But it's interesting because those people that do that are very intuitive. It's almost like they go to someone else to get confirmation about stuff they already know. And it blows me away how people do that. Even Fiona, over the years.
Yeah, it's just like, it just confirmed what I already knew.
Yeah. So, and then, you know, people will ask, well, you know, how was that reader, or how was, you know, and they're like, yeah, you know, it didn't tell me anything I didn't already know. That's because that person is usually quite intuitive, but doesn't quite trust themselves to believe all of that knowing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So maybe it's a matter of, you know, where are you? Are you one of those people that outsources and wants that confirmation from someone else, even though you already know? Or are you, you know, you at the stage where you're like, you're going to trust yourself and start to, you know, build that evidence journal and build that muscle and go, okay, when this shows up for me, I'm going to trust it because, you know, this is my authority as well.
Yeah, use your own internal guidance system. Yeah. Sure. And it's real. It, you know, don't doubt it. Start doing the journaling, start like looking for the evidence, and the more you do and the more you see that it is real, the more it will show up and support you. So
100%. Oh, love it. All right. Do you have a card for us?
I've actually haven't got any. Do you want me to run and get my cards?
Yes, do it. Oh my God. So I'm just going to pause.
Get a card out. Oh, cool.
That was good.
Oh, love this. Okay. So we've got two cards that automatically jumped out.
Awesome. We love jumpers.
So we've got the King of Cups, which is like trusting that emotional wisdom, that intuitive wisdom, like sit in the seat of your power. And I think that, you know, embodying all of everything we've just said. And then we've got the Seven of Swords, which popped up as well. So that can be, I just feel this can be about being like having some form of deceit or something like happening to you, or it could potentially be where your own thoughts are deceiving you. So I feel like it's like shining the light on those thought processes that potentially are keeping you small, and trust in that intuitive wisdom and embody that. Like really tap in. You know, there's so much strength in that.
Well, maybe the Seven of Swords can be like your ego, you know, wanting to make you believe that it's something else when it's really your intuition showing up for you.
Yeah, I always feel like this is like, where are you deceiving yourself? Like it could potentially be physical, like, you know, someone has done something wrong by you, but I always feel like, where are you deceiving yourself, and where do you need to shine the light on that part of your life? And like, you know, we have access to our intuition, which helps with that. So
I love it. All righty. Well, I hope everyone has enjoyed this episode of Rach and Fi Unplugged. We've had fun discussing our little journey, our little journey of our lifetime, you know. But, you know, this is the thing. If we can share our our experiences and our knowledge, then we're doing what we set out to do.
Beautiful. Thanks, Rach.
Until next time, everyone. Bye.
Bye.